Hello everybody, it's Neil Foley from the Business Growth Club here. I'm really delighted this afternoon to have a really special guest with us, Chris Sargisson, CEO of the Norfolk Chamber of Commerce.
Hello.
How are you then, Chris?
My afternoon's a lot better now. I found out that you're delighted and I'm a special guest.
Well, it doesn't say much for our other guests, does it?
Can we just stop now and I'll go back to work?
Well, what we're hoping to do over the next half an hour or so is to explore a little bit about what the Chamber of Commerce actually is, for people who don't know it, its relevance today, if you like, because I know it's quite an old organisation. You were recently appointed, weren't you, Chris? I mean, literally a few weeks ago?
Yeah, I've just tripped over my 100th day.
Have you? Right, okay, so 3 months.
I introduced myself to a group a couple of days ago as the newly appointed CEO, and I was put right and said I can't say that anymore because I've had 100 days. So now I'm just the CEO.
Just the CEO.
It's all in the past now.
Part of the furniture.
Absolutely.
Well, let's kick off in terms of, because I know that the Norfolk Chamber has celebrated its 120th anniversary.
120 years, yes. 1896 it was formed. I've got a very large wooden board in my boardroom with all of the names of the past presidents going back to 1896.
I've seen that.
Yeah, some very interesting names on there, actually. The Colemans and the Gurneys.
I was going to say that it was the great and the good, really.
Yeah. And there's a slight bit of pressure about it as well because they've obviously spent some money on it a few years ago on the basis that it will carry on for another 120 years. So the right-hand side is blank.
Yes.
If I don't do well,
I think it's just prudent. Yeah, prudent.
So we're anticipating at least another 120 years.
So in terms of, I understand a little bit about the Chamber, but not a great deal. Was it just a local businesses saying we ought to get together, and was that really it?
Yeah, I think so. I think the Chambers they're an interesting organisation because they're all independent of each other. There's 52 of them across the country, and they all act independently, although they all share the Chamber of Commerce branding. Anybody can set up a Chamber of Commerce if they wish. And I think historically they were a means of businesses being able to trade between each other. So the sort of classic inward investment type of process and share best practice and ideas and in the days before the kind of levels of connectivity that we have, even before telephones, it was a means of people being able to get together on a regular basis and understand, on the one hand, what was going on politically, but also what was going on in markets and trade accordingly. There is a British Chamber of Commerce which you can choose to be affiliated to, which we are affiliated to, and that has direct links into government and enables us to do certain things on behalf of government, like issue certificates for international trade, and also we are able to talk to the local MPs all the way through to local government in understanding everything that affects businesses within the political landscape as well.
Okay.
But essentially, the chamber is splits its membership really between sort of two distinct groups, the majority of which would be your classic B2B business. And our role in our relationship with those members is, on the one hand, to help those businesses promote themselves, both within their region and within our network, and on the other hand, the businesses themselves and the challenges they have as being a business. Everything from signposting them from skills to policy to investment to training to development, enabling for them to grow both within their own structure but also within the wider community. The other type of business that we represent would be the providers of information, all the local authorities, through to the LEPs and the education sectors as well. So we act as a voice for them, so businesses can interact, and also those organisations can engage through us to understand what they should be doing within the political landscape around things like infrastructure and so on and so on.
Oh, I see.
So it's a very, very... I have this massive...
It's quite a broad church, isn't it? Isn't it really? Broader than you think.
Yeah, and it's... In terms of relevancy, I would say that the Chamber's role in business world has never been more relevant, particularly with issues around the corner around Brexit, but also with just the needs for growth and skills and the fast-moving pace of business with technology. We're one of the few organisations, probably not the only organisation, that really has this very wide funnel above it, where lots and lots of very valuable and useful and relevant information is poured in. what we need to do is find the creative and clever ways to articulate it so businesses can engage and interact and survive and grow.
And I suppose that brings us on to one of my first points I'd thought of in terms of what's your impression been of the Chamber having joined 100 days ago? What's your overall impression of it?
Incredibly relevant and very, very, very keen to do the right thing. What's interesting, I think, is I had a number of conversations with the board before I took the post. Because their concerns were centred around the classic "it ain't what you do, it's the way that you do it" sort of analogy. So it's not, and my board is made up of business people. So they've been engaged with the Chamber in some cases for a year, in other cases for 20 years, and they can see how important it is. And their feeling is that we're not able to sort of cut through and talk to more organisations and be helpful to more organisations. So I've inherited a business which has, with its 120 years, a very, very good, deep understanding of the business world and an incredible amount of links and connections within organisations to be supportive. But I'm the first CEO to be appointed into the Chambers of Commerce across the UK from outside the environment for about 17 years.
Really?
So most of the CEOs have been recruited from within.
From employees who were...
Yeah, sort of progressed through
right, okay.
to a CEO role. And what they advertised for in this post was an entrepreneurial CEO, which is really what my background is. So most of the conversations I had with them were, what's your definition of entrepreneurial? How far down the rabbit hole do you want to go? Because it's not the case of being entrepreneurial and changing the fabrics and putting slightly different pictures on the walls. It's very much around how do you take a traditional organisation and disrupt it, which is really what my background has been. Not changing what it does, but actually changing the way that it does it. So when I got the feeling and the vibe that they were keen to. The board were keen, not just in Norfolk, but across the Chamber network as well, to think of creative ways that they can engage with more businesses and be more relevant, then it was an attractive role.
Yeah. No. And so you're actually, although you said I think there were 52 chambers, do you all talk and meet and share ideas?
We do. There is a CEO roundtable event that happens every quarter. I have regular meetings and conversations with certainly my direct equivalents on the borders, Suffolk Chamber, Cambridge Chamber, Northamptonshire, Essex. I'm bombing off to London on Thursday for a roundtable discussion where I'm actually going to pitch to them actually what my vision for the digital world should look like. So they're going to come back with my tail between my legs.
I was going to say, if you're the first one for 17 years...
Who is this young lad? Who's not young, by the way. I'm 50 with grey hair. But it's moving them out of a space which is around what they know and into a world that they don't know. But it's coming, it's not sort of crazy, let's all go to Mars in our space car kind of world. It's
and they know that they've got the knowledge from what you're saying. You're talking about how they communicate and interact with members rather than go and learn a new set of facts or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if the role was around product or the role was around relevancy and significantly changing what it does, or even if the role was political, so I'm not politically political. That's the right.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. Luckily, I've got a good team of people here who are.
Yes.
That's not the challenge. The challenge is around the communication of it and the involvement of it and why it's important and how you can influence it and how you can be part of it, kind of thing.
I can imagine, because from the political standpoint, I know you'd obviously have a decent relationship with the local MPs, etc. And I've met a few of them. But the reality is, unless they're in government or they're in cabinet, actually they don't have a lot of influence, do they?
Well, we've got to be quite rightly interacting with those in power and those in opposition. The political role for us is probably more centred around organisations like the LEP, who are charged with solving particular problems within regions around, with our region, it's been predominantly around infrastructures and skills, and it's actually acting as that communication and that link. And within those LEP environments, you will have a board made up of people in the political life as well, in the business life. But politicians, it's from my understanding is it's how often and how loud and you shout and how relevant what you're shouting is. We did very well with shouting about the dueling of the A11, and we campaign very hard around infrastructures currently for the A47 all the way through to getting new trains and upgrading the train connectivity. The big shout at the moment now is actually trying to get more support around promoting Norfolk as being an area where you can invest in and develop skills in. So there was a lot of activity with MIPIN in London this year with Norfolk and Suffolk to start really standing on a platform to broadcast Norfolk with a strong message of being a place to do business. And I'm really passionate about that. That's one thing I must admit that I feel quite strongly about, and I don't think we do it very well. I think we do it. I think we our approach to talking about Norfolk is always slightly based on an apology.
Do you?
And we don't need to.
But you're not a Norfolk man, are you? I know you've lived here quite a long time.
Now I'm married a Norfolk girl.
Yeah.
So I'm a Scouser by trade,
okay.
But I don't have the accent because the slightest tinge of it that my father heard, and I was off to school, and that was removed.
Good old dad.
Except when the beers come out, and then it starts to creep back in.
So why Norfolk? I mean, because I'm not a Norfolk man, but I've been here for most of my life, on and off. Why are we so poor at doing it? Is it because we used to be a provincial city, in the backwater? I don't know.
I think our behaviour is a bit endemic. It's become part of our DNA. We feel that that's what we have to do, but actually the reasons why you might be apologising for Norfolk actually don't exist anymore, but no one's actually changed the message. So I'm changing the message.
Yeah, good for you.
It's about success. If you come to Norfolk to work or set up a business, you will succeed. End of.
Yeah.
There's no, how you define success is very much down to you, whether it be quality of life or money or access to the coast or whatever it is. It's a great place to live and work. End of.
Yeah.
But I think we've never actually sort of stood up and gone, hang on a minute, no, actually that's true. That is how it is. What we've tended to say is it is a great place to work, but the trains are a bit rubbish, or the roads are a bit hard, or you have to come to Norwich for a reason. It's not a place you go through to get to. That's irrelevant.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter anymore.
No.
I think the more we can talk about success and actually broadcast success and be genuine about it, because it is genuine, the message starts to go away, the apology starts to drift away, and changing a behaviour pattern which is deeply rooted.
Yes.
It'll take a long time to do, but we've got to start this. So let's start now. Let's start talking about success.
It's a great message, isn't it? Because certainly Norwich has a lot going for it, doesn't it? In terms of the UEA, I know when I came here in the late '60s, I think UEA had just been formed or whatever.
Yeah.
But actually, it's a world-class university for literature and environmental science.
It is. It's got one of the highest percentage of population of students who leave and remain in the
Yes, that's certainly true, isn't it?
And Norwich is one of the fastest growing cities. You've also got the incredible success and rise of Newer from an art college 15 years ago to one of the sort of leading university of arts. You've got an area which is becoming regarded as quite bohemian and the new Notting Hill and so on and so on.
Yeah.
And we need to, but we're not the Norwich Chamber of Commerce. We're the Norfolk Chamber of Commerce.
Is there a danger that you become quite Norwich-centric?
Yeah, no, I think we have become the Norwich Chamber of Commerce, and I look at the challenges that we have in areas from West Norfolk to East Norfolk, which have the opportunity to be just as successful, and we've got to get back there and do that. We did have offices in those locations. We followed a model I think that other companies have done, where you retract to a larger office and you control from one place Actually, I don't think that works for us. I think my feeling is if we spend a lot less time in this building and much more time with leather on the street, we need to get offices and space in those areas, North Norfolk, West Norfolk, South Norfolk, and be relevant and be supportive and broadcasting a message of success and help.
Especially if you can be a conduit, as you're saying, to the two different distinct sides of the chamber.
Yes.
And that's what you need, don't you?
Yes, absolutely.
So why would somebody join Chamber? I know I did a couple of years ago, but I mean, why would somebody, a newish business, say a small business like mine, why would they join Chamber?
The big value, I think, in a Chamber membership is the fact that you are in a well-known, well-formed, well-supported organisation. We employ people, and those people's roles are to understand who you are, understand what you're trying to achieve, and support you with it, whether it be the promotion of what you do to people who don't know what you do.
Sure.
There's little value in us promoting you to people who already know you. And also understanding what particular stage of development you are, what particular sector you're in, and how we can support you as your business grows and moves and develops and moves on in a way that's genuine rather than disingenuous. It's not about trying to sell things to people. You've already paid your membership. So it's constantly asking the question in the right way, which is, are you all right? How can I help you? Are you all right?
And who would ask that then? Would I as a newish member have to engage, or would somebody ring me or say, should we meet? Or
we are. Well, this is one of the big changes that's happening at the moment within the culture. I think one of the things I've observed, my feeling is that we're very keen to make sure that we are supportive of our members, but we haven't necessarily got the right behaviours in-house to do it.
Okay.
So we are having a bit of a cultural shift, shall we say. So the big buzzwords for me, and it's always been in the businesses that I've developed, is about customer centricity. It's about really understanding all of the things that you do that mean that you are genuinely exhibiting the signs of being customer centric.
So you can be more seen as well, being more proactive rather than reactive.
Yes. The danger is when organisations form and things become familiar, that familiarity turns into effectively administration. You administer something, and everything has a process and a form and a person in charge of it. I like a bit more chaos.
Hence the entrepreneurial bit.
It's very difficult to categorise customers by a piece of paper. I want the environment to be much more open and much more transparent. I want to be able to demonstrate not that we are fulfilling the brief in terms of delivering something that you expected to happen as a process, but actually delivering something that means that when you've engaged with us, the experience has been a enriching one, that you've got value from it. And that's harder to manage. So if we were to take a simple event, the measures would perhaps be more around, did the right number of people turn up, and what was the quality of the sausage at breakfast, and those sorts of things. They're all important, but actually what I want to know is, are you okay? Did you meet the people you wanted to meet to? Did you find out what you wanted to find out? Did you engage? And start to rebuild the business around actually lifting those out of those interactions and then being transparent about saying, this is how well we're doing. So when you meet the Chamber, the experiences that you're having with us are there to support you and enrich you and work with you or signpost you into the places. That means that some of the things that you will almost undoubtedly encounter in business, you've got genuine support on, rather than somebody selling you something or positioning something in front of you that you don't actually need. Particularly with networking, it's all I did was sit next to someone that tried to sell me a photocopier. Everybody needs a photocopier at various points, but if all you're getting is that interaction, then we're not relevant and we're not adding value. And the heart of that is to understand the customer. Whether we've got 1,000 customers or 10,000 customers, we have to have that within our DNA, that customer centricity. And then we always build out from that. So it's re-establishing the culture and the values within an organisation that means that we can genuinely...
Because that's quite threatening for some staff, won't it? In terms of, because it's not what they're used to.
Moving somebody away from an administrative space into a more customer-friendly space can be challenging if it's not the role that they had. But I'm looking to build out. I think we've got. I know from a good example. We've just done a photo shoot with our staff, with the people here. And so what I'm trying to do, because I can't see the customer in this building at all. I can't see images of them. I can't see pictures of them. I can't relate to them because they don't exist. And what I want to do is to start using a much more sort of richer imagery of us and the people we support. So we're doing some tests at the moment of standing our staff in a sort of white backlit box and getting them to pose so we can start to build montages.
Oh, okay.
And then we'll do the same with customers so we can use those montages to sort of express what we do to different people in different ways. And I was thinking that they might find it a bit sort of intimidating or a bit shy, and they were bouncing around all over the place.
No, were they? They got hidden talents.
So there's an extrovert there coming to...
Well, it'll be more rewarding, won't it, if you're customer facing and can interact and get some decent feedback and the rest of it and make a difference. Actually, that has to be infinitely more rewarding than an admin role. Yeah,
and to be given an environment and a culture where that's expected, and where you without wishing to be cliche, the sort of go the extra mile kind of mentality.
Yeah.
We can do that as a membership environment that employs people to look after customers, which is what we do, and we're one of the few that do. There are membership organisations out there, but they don't have payroll. That's exactly the kind of environment that we should be working in. There's a level above it at the moment which is forming, which is to start to become a bit more specialised around sectors, particularly the digital sector, which is something that's very important. So you've got a general level of engagement, and then you might have people who are much more sector specific that can work with the broader group. But overall, that multi-skilled, can do, how can I help, genuine culture is something that's really, really important to get in place day one, because everything that we do over the next 3 to 4 years will build out from that profile.
Yeah, make a big difference. You mentioned networking. Do you regard Chamber as a networking organisation?
It's definitely part of our role to try to make sure that we signpost the right organisations and create environments where businesses can get together and meet. It's what the business was formed on 120 years ago. But I think our networking has different levels and layers of engagement depending on what the particular need is. So every opportunity to bring businesses together is a network opportunity, but there will almost certainly be a theme. So we're looking at doing a lot more around those themes, so the businesses and a lot more around the different types of engagement and the different times, breakfast, lunch, dinners, more conferences, more sort of content rich. Let me learn something, let me tell you something that you don't know that's useful to you, rather than let me tell you about me and my business and why you should employ me. So it all the way down to, there is a need to do some really kind of fairly sort of hardcore speed networking. If you've got the right people in the room and they know that's why they're there,
that's all right.
That's fine. But when you try and do a bit of everything and people feel a bit uncomfortable or don't feel that they're in the right environment, then it can become a bit problematic. And we are very, very supportive of all the other networking environments that are there, because they are vital. It's my feeling is that if you've got a particular group that you know and you work with, you should actually be a member of it and go to it. But you should also be a member of the Chamber of Commerce, because sitting on top of that is a much, much wider brief and much wider understanding of the business world.
Yeah, I've certainly had some fabulous breakfast meetings through Chamber.
Oh, good.
Well, I
do tell me if I ruin it, won't you?
Well, the last one, you forgot the instructions, if I remember.
Oh, yeah. No, somebody walked off with them.
Oh, somebody, that was right, yes. Doug did, didn't he? Doug Field did, didn't he?
I had to improvise with some interpretive dance.
Yes. But the breakfasts are good because you're sitting next to people you wouldn't normally sit next to, so it is a...
Yeah.
And I find that I've met some really interesting people.
And that's good, and I think we need to capture that and encourage it. There's ways that we can... We're looking at our entire digital space at the moment about how we can interact with people before, during and after an event using technology. But also I think one of the big pulls that we can provide is making sure that a number of people that are in that room are new. If all we do is create an environment where you meet the same people and have the same conversations, then you're not necessarily getting the value out of it. But we need to structure it and manage it and put it so it performs in the right way. But constantly keeping those groups fresh and alive, no matter they be Norwich or West Norfolk or or Great Yarmouth, is something which we should be. There should be an expectation from us, and that's something that I'm very keen to get right. And
that'd be amazing if you can get that, because I can see they're already very valuable. So if we can make it more so with more engagement before and after,
it's all about relevancy. And I think one of the things that we are. Because we're a non-for-profit membership organisation, we're quite keen to make sure that we demonstrate value for money quite rightly. But sometimes that model can hold you back a bit. And I think actually being a little bit more open and a bit more come along and see how you think and engage with us. Don't worry about it. See if we're relevant. If we are relevant to you, and we are projecting the right message of wanting to be supportive, then you can join, knowing that you're going to get, for every £1 you put in the fruit machine, you get £3 out. That we will pay out in what we do. And that has to be our approach to it.
And I remember you saying in a previous conversation, Chris, you've got in your mind that you've got a tenure here that you want to make a difference.
Yes.
What do you think the chamber will look like then in 5 years' time? If your dreams come true and all the work and hard work and the team's work behind you,
the big difference, I think, between now and the next 5 years that we at least double, if not quadruple, the membership numbers.
Because 1,000 for Norfolk is relatively small.
It is relatively small. Now that can only really be achieved by manoeuvring ourselves into a more digital space. We haven't invested in any kind of IT or platform in the way that other businesses have. That means that we can be 24/7. If we can start to create these proper profiles of our customers and enable them to be interactive online and people to start engaging with each other in the digital space, then it changes our pricing models slightly, but it also means for the better, I should say. But it also means that we start to have more of a digital footprint, and we can do more interesting things, and in a way that people are becoming more familiar with. I'm not talking about flushing out the old, we're replacing it with a new, or sort of forcing our services into an online space, and that's the only place that they'll exist. It's a technology is always going to be an enabler for us to do more, and that more needs to translate into more people actually getting a benefit and from being able to be interacting with us. And it's got to be a membership based upon relevancy and what's important to you, that you are by interacting and engaging and joining, that you're getting more out of it. So it's not about talking to the people that we know about things that we understand. It's about talking to the people that we don't know about things that we understand. So the next 5 years, and I said to the board that I'd do a 5-year stint. I think it's important to actually start with the end in mind, and to put energy into changing the culture here, so we can be much more engaging for all the right reasons, and energy into getting the right level of platform in place that doesn't burn a massive hole in the bank account by any stretch of the imagination, but actually lifts the customer experience as well. And in 5 years' time, you'll see a membership which has grown considerably and is actually having a digital engagement with us, as well as a more traditional one, which will always continue as well.
And that has a lot of benefits for members, doesn't it? Because if suddenly we got 2,000 or 3,000 members, as you're saying, from a B2B viewpoint, it makes a big difference, doesn't it? In terms of
the more, but as a non-for-profit, and if I can start, if we grow at a rate that actually increases our costs by the same rate, then we don't achieve very much. If we can grow at a rate that actually means that we can do more using technology, and I can keep the costs down, then I can reduce the membership costs, which is always good. We can get ourselves into a position where membership is based upon more on what you do because you need to do it, rather than sort of paying for something and then perhaps getting the benefit from it or not as the year goes by. So it changes that model as well, which will become more and more challenging as life goes on, unless we start to provide a sort of pay-as-you-go type environment.
So it's exciting times. So
yeah,
it is. Not much to do then.
No,
of course not. And the final question, Chris, in terms of if you were a young man, again, sort of 18, or something like that, knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself?
Not to worry.
Would you?
Yeah. I overthink. I'm very, very keen about making sure that what we do is always the right thing, and it's sometimes you can take yourself. You miss the positives and you latch onto a negative, and it takes you down a bit of a dark alley sometimes. And I've done that too many times. Now I'm very, very fortunate to have the most incredibly strong, lovely wife who just tuts at me and just says things, you're bloody stupid. What are you talking about? And I'm thinking, oh my God, I've done this and it's all going to be terrible and the place is going to catch fire. None of the worst case prophecies have ever really come true. And I think you tend to worry a little bit too much about the singularity that might be a negative rather than the broader picture.
Yes.
I try and point my moral compass in the right direction, so everything that we do is always genuinely for the right reasons, and that reason in this environment is always exclusively to the benefit of the people who are paying my wages.
Yeah.
This is not my business. This is the Chamber of Commerce. This is your business, actually. So it's to make sure that that I can do these things and focus on that mantra, and then stop worrying so much. I spent too much time in my 20s and 30s creating businesses and worrying them about them waking up at 3 o'clock on a Sunday morning going, oh my God, and thinking of some terrible scenario which never actually happens. No. What about you? What would be you say to your 18-year-old?
I think it would be very similar.
Yeah.
I think grasp the opportunities. I think because there's some that come past and you think, should I do that? And actually I would have a go.
Right.
I think nobody's ever asked me that. It's normally the other way around, Chris. So I think it would largely be, grasp the opportunities and probably enjoy life. It's because mental health is a big issue nowadays. In terms of it's been talked about, it's always been a big issue. Hidden.
It is. It has been hidden. I remember when I was working to sort of reshape Norwich Union Direct. So we were first in there as the disruptors for a very traditional insurance business, Norwich Union, and we had a team that was growing exponentially of people aged between sort of 18 and school leavers to 25.
Right.
And I remember getting a phone call from the occupational health department, which in the days of Norwich Union you would only administer milk and magnesia
I can
and
imagine.
something for gout.
Yeah.
And they sort of had this queue of quite young people outside their door who were struggling, with life. It was nothing that could be administered by nursing.
No.
And it was a very sobering thing that there were a number of people who that mental wellness was a really, really important element of business, because you put stresses on people and it pops up and people need to do something about it. So we've always created programs to try and identify where people, well, first of all, make sure we don't put people in an environment where they feel stress that affects their health. But often people come with issues that you need to be supportive of, because most of our lives are spent in our heads.
Yeah, no, that's incredibly true. And there was a very good podcast, a plug for another podcast for a guy called Gary Burton, who's a really interesting fellow, who is using about these, I think he calls them principles for life, which is about exactly that. Actually, everything that happens in the world is actually in your head. Yeah. And how you react to something is entirely your choice.
Yes.
So regardless of whether there's disaster outside or somebody's rude to you or the world is unfair, how you react is entirely in your control. I mean, it's easier said than done, but it's a very interesting podcast if you get a chance. I
will have a listen to that. I had something that actually I had a meeting last week with with 3 or 4 sort of fairly big CEOs and fairly big businesses, that we were talking about the very subject of how do we get mental wellness back into business. I mean, one of the organisations locally that's doing, ironically, considering my Norwich Union Direct days in 1994 it was, one of the organisations that's just making incredible steps into resolving it is Aviva.
Really?
Yeah, they're doing something.
Good for them. I saw they did some. I've forgotten what they did just recently. Was it a paternity leave?
Yeah, 12 months. Is it 12 months?
I think it is.
Yeah,
it's something
12
which is pretty astonishing, really.
Yeah, but they've got a whole environment at their big building in Thorpe, which is and a whole team absolutely looking at the pillars of staff satisfaction and retention and health and well-being. And they recognise it from a lost productivity point of view, as well as a sort of staff retention point of view, as well as morally doing the right thing. It's really, really important.
Nice for an insurance company to
it is
big business to behave like that.
Absolutely, and I think the more we can do to understand, because they've invested a lot of energy, time, and money in understanding that, and they seem really, really quite open about sharing it with.
Yeah,
and
good for them.
One of the things I think we can do here is to try and signpost to that.
Yeah, no, that's great. How do people get in touch with you then, Chris? If people needed to, they can obviously get in touch with the Chamber via, is it Norfolk Chamber? I was trying to remember the name of the website. Is
Norfolk Chamber of Commerce is the website. The website's a bit old.
Yes.
and really needs to have a bit of a sort out. But you can email us. I'm chris.sargisson at norfolkchamber.co.uk. Anything like that would be absolutely fine, or you can ring us, or you can please come and see me. It'll be lovely to see customers coming through the door.
Okay.
Anything that anybody's got, any questions, we've got meeting rooms, boardrooms. I've actually upped the level of coffee.
Oh, excellent!
Yeah, from something industrial in a tin to some fresh stuff in a machine. So we can have decent coffee as well.
So we're open for business.
We are open for business.
It's the message, isn't it?
Anything about promoting what you do or helping doing what you do better, then that's the kind of conversation that we want to be having. And if we can help and be relevant with it, then we'd love to chat about it.
Well, that's brilliant, and thank you very much indeed for your time, Chris.
My pleasure.
We will have a transcript of this podcast, which we'll put on the website. So have a look at the Norfolk Chamber. Get in touch with Chris. I've known Chris for a little while, and you won't get a better man. If you want to see more on the series of the podcast, then go to businessgrowthclub.net. And until next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.